So as a coach who, when you start implementing yoga training for your athletes, what would you say was like the first benefit that you could see in like their performance or in the way that they were training or performing during racing or just in general, like in pieces in training?
So for me, I'd say the most important is like that mind-body connection. So it's that awareness, and particularly with junior athletes, it's like having that proprioception that, even like I'm moving my arm, I'm moving my other arm. I don't know. Have you guys coached juniors? Oh, you coached Oxford Connect.
But it starts quite basic. My brother was working with a charity in London, and they had quite a few kids that obviously had lived in an inner city and from a lower income and hadn't really done enough sport and stuff. And he said he was playing football with them, and there's like a kid running around with his arms like by his side. He's like, he had to like pull him aside and be like, it's kind of easier to run if you use your momentum. And it seems crazy, like even some of the things that you take for granted, you'll bump into people that just haven't had that ability, maybe not had someone to teach it or just not had a chance. He was like, it was weird. I was finding it difficult to just do what he was doing.
But, and I think, especially say like when you're teaching kids to row, most schools, they start at J14. And one of the first things you teach is like hinging from the hips.
Yeah.
And then if you got all the 14s in a room together and you're just going to teach them like how to hinge from the hips, half of them wouldn't be able to do it on land. And then you're going to put them in a boat out on the river, like with all this stuff going on and not having that basic awareness of how to move your body.
I think that was one of the biggest challenges in coaching, was realizing that rowing is such a specialized movement that you don't really tend to do unless you've tried it. So even you can see that when people try it in the gym, it's really, really difficult to pick up. But even, you can explain to somebody the motion of what they need to do. You need to press with the legs, keep your arms straight, then keep your back tight, and then open up the back, etc. And part of teaching people how to row is teaching them how to use their own body. Like, you like if you press with the legs, it doesn't mean your arm needs to bend and that kind of thing.
Awareness, like you said, like mind-body connection is. And certainly the further you get with it, it's so important, because you're not going to be able to make changes if you don't know what you're doing. And I've seen that's a big one for video analysis, is because you actually get to see yourself doing it, because you can listen to a coach is telling you to do something. You're like, I'm doing it. And then you look at a video of yourself and like, I'm not doing it at all. Like, I thought I was doing it. And I haven't made it. It's like, that's where I called the change. It's like, I haven't even changed. And the coach is like, that's what I've been telling you.
So, you've got that like consistent feedback loop.
Yeah.
And then I'd also say that just having more natural and more non-linear movements. And I think that can really help in terms of things like injuries, and just in terms of just enjoying your life a lot better outside of rowing and not being sort of always in pain.
I think a lot of, obviously we coach students, but there's a lot of students and athletes that do it. And I quite think that if you've got a bad back, one of the worst things is having to sit down and do your work. And that's the other thing that you're doing with your life. Yeah,
absolutely. And then so much of the rowing training traditionally has been focused on like very linear movement. And we're very, always moving in a certain way, like a robot, and moving on the water. And I just think doing something where there's more of a flow and more natural movements and more linear movements.
And mobility too.
Yeah, and mobility. So you're developing strength throughout the full ranges of movements. It's only ever going to be beneficial for the rowing.